welcome people who are joining us.
Yes,
If there
hello.
are folks out there, I'm talking on the subject of Career Clinic. I'm Farah, and you'll see that this is coming from my account, and I've invited today Chris Luge on board as part of the Career Clinic crew to
Hello.
talk about a foundational part of this clinic day that we're going to be running, which is making space. So we're beginning with this, and that's really important. Can you say a bit more about what that means to begin with this piece as opposed to just diving into action or doing some crazy activities?
Yeah, for sure. So for me, I think it means two different things. So I think, as you say, the kind of the diving into action, but what is that action and what's it orientated towards, and kind of how effective is it going to be? And when we make space, we allow a kind of, when we quiet the noise around us, we're allowing things that are meaningful to us to kind of come from inside to figure out, okay, well, I'm ready to take action, but actually I'm identifying this as the most important thing. And I think when we're not making enough space, when we're not making sufficient space, or that space is kind of a bit too noisy, the most important thing can be crowded out by other things that are kind of announcing themselves in a much louder way. So it helps to orientate us towards that thing. And then, equally as important, the kind of, making space for the regulation of the nervous system. The nervous system really, in my view, is
Mm.
the key to all of this. It allows us to take a step forward that will be sustainable, and it kind of helps us to be less distracted from the other shiny things that are in our lives, the other commitments that we've got,
Yeah.
which is essentially what procrastination is, right? It's like and it's, and you can
So
really,
guilty of that.
yeah, absolutely. And the more important the task you're doing, the more likely you are to procrastinate, right? Like tidying my room is something which only ever happens when I'm doing something really important. And
Yeah.
that's the significant thing, I think.
Yeah, I definitely have messages that I think I'll reply to that properly, and I'll do it when I have time and energy and all of that. And then it's weeks and the time just goes by. And actually, what I should have done is made a bit of space for that,
Bit of
sort of
space.
headspace, more than time, in fact, because you can kind of
Mm,
fit stuff into your day sometimes. But if you don't have the
yeah.
brain power for it, then it just feels like
Yes.
too much.
Yeah. I think you're touching a really important point. Um, and I see the kind of frame of this whole making space thing as overstimulation and
Mm.
overwhelm. Those two things are really closely connected, and I'm just personally very familiar with the feeling of overwhelm, and just there being a thing that you have to do, and to put this in the context of something I talk a lot about, writing a CV or applying for a job.
Yeah.
You might actually have time, so
Mm.
time may not be the issue, it might be, but you just feel so overwhelmed that even entertaining the thought of it is too much.
Yeah.
You're maxed out, kind of, in terms of your energy that you can devote to something. And making space really is about shifting from that kind of reactionary lifestyle of, I'm just kind of allowing life to pour on top of me,
Mm.
to, like, okay, I'm going to start choosing the things that I want to do. And once we start to do that, we start to snowball. We create momentum. We start to see ourselves as somebody who does things and completes them,
Yeah.
and that process of, and I think it's a very humble path, because, in the moment it doesn't look very exciting, like
Mm.
one small step at a time. But those steps compound, and you start to feel more and more capable, and that's certainly what it's felt like for me.
Yeah, especially when you have a moment where you're quite full and maybe you don't do anything, But maybe also you're talking at the beginning about kind of almost being reactive to things. I've had one point in my career when I've been massively reactive and said, I can't do this anymore.
Mm.
I'm just going to take that opportunity over there because it's there. And I was very
Yes.
lucky to have an opportunity, but
Right.
it turned out not to be a great move. I lasted
Mm.
11 months and that was painful.
Yeah.
Whereas the next time when I moved, it was a bit more, I needed to be a bit more considered and it turned out so much better. And I think even if that second time hadn't turned out better, even if I'd made an intentional decision and it hadn't panned out, it wouldn't have been so stressful. I would have gone, huh, I tried a thing,
Yeah.
it didn't
Y-
work out, let's move on. I was just
yes.
flustered for this 11 months. I was just running around after myself, going, but I changed something, why isn't it working?
Yeah. Yeah. That's really interesting because I think that it's not necessarily the thing that you're doing, but it's how you arrived at the thing, which
Yeah,
can be way more important. And if you when you exist in a like a reactionary state, when you're just saying yes to stuff or you're just accepting, it fascinates me how many people, including me, no doubt, have accepted job offers in the past that actually may not have been right. And when we
yeah,
exist in that reactionary state, we're teaching our nervous system that our needs aren't even worth considering, because
yeah,
we're just saying yes. We just there's no us in that equation. Whereas saying yes with intention, even if you were going to say yes as a reaction, saying yes with intention is, that's like a physiological act that you're making there.
yeah,
That's a vote for yourself. That's like, okay, my opinion, my views, what matters to me is important. And that switch, it doesn't have to be a big one, can shift you from from overwhelm to having a sense of agency. This is it's a bit of a
mm,
cliche, but life isn't happening to you. You're creating it. And that, I think, is the shift that we're talking about, and hopefully we'll be able to dive into a little bit more on the
yeah,
day for the career clinic, when we've got a bit of time to take people on a really exciting journey.
yeah, which is the 29th of June, coming up full day. So we're starting in the morning, sort of arrival for from 9 o'clock, sort of kicking off, 20 past, 9:30. And we're gonna provide you lunch. Come along for have a lunch with us. But I think really this is sort of the foundational piece where we're trying to create some space for you, coming to this clinic, to think, to consider, to be intentional, and then following your session, we're leading directly back into kind of reconnecting with yourself and your values and the things
Mm,
that matter to you. Because the reason this is career clinic, not job clinic, because we all have to sometimes take a job to pay the bills, right? But even if that's an intention, right, this is something to tide me over, hopefully we're making a bit of space to consider maybe something a bit more long term, maybe something more meaningful, that can stack up for us. And that's the path that we're trying to create on Career Clinic. So we'll be also looking at kind of how we action all of these things as well when we've made those
mm,
connections to
yeah, really important.
our values. So,
Yeah,
so what do we do?
that's really important as well, I think, because yeah, it's all well and good making space, but what are you going to do with it? Um,
Yeah,
what's your yeah? I think if you don't ultimately kind of use that space to bring out, to kind of orientate towards your best self, which, yeah, on a practical level, that means, what are your values? What do you like? What do you dislike? What resources do you
yeah,
have available? And then identifying that little step, and stepping out into the unknown. Ultimately,
yeah.
a lot of the time, that's how this feels, is
Oh, so
taking a
scary,
step.
right? It is
Yeah,
absolutely terrifying. to
Yes.
step out into something new, finding a new path, maybe trying something out that maybe will work out, maybe it won't, but you won't
Yeah.
know if you don't try. Yeah, it's really scary.
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of how I see that this whole piece is, um, learning to feel safe, kind of in situations where you're scared.
Yeah.
um, because it's the fear that keeps us kind of stuck in place, and it's the fear that keeps us reactive, and it's the fear that makes us see potential opportunities as threats. And
Mm.
so when we create that little bubble of safety, and then when we take measured steps towards something that's meaningful to us, we're learning that actually it's safe to do that. And that really helps to emphasize the point, I think, that when you take a step that's too big, there's a significant risk that, because it's too big, because you haven't built the structure, you haven't built the correct momentum, your life doesn't reflect that step, that you're much more likely to fail, like the New Year's resolution gym
Oh,
goers.
yeah.
January the 1st they're all there, January the 7th they're gone, um, because the step was too big, and ultimately the nervous system couldn't cope with it. And then that reinforces the message of, I'm not safe enough to take these steps. I'm not good
Mm.
enough. Whereas taking a tiny, teeny little step, the person who was going to go to the gym once a week,
Yeah.
6 months down the line, they're probably still going once a week, or maybe they've even felt that they could step it up to twice a week. And
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really important about this. I love the phrase that you have. I want to share it with people, of the embarrassingly small step. I
yeah,
absolutely love that because it makes such a difference to the mindset that we approach these things with. And I love this analogy of the gym and the fitness because it's also about connecting what makes sense to you. Maybe you hate the machines at the gym. I do.
mm,
I'm one of those people. I hate that. But what I really like is, for me, is classes.
yeah,
I like going to your yoga and your Zumba and things like that. So it doesn't make sense for me to sign up to the machines because
yeah,
I hate it and I won't. I know I won't do it. But I might go for a walk with a friend, or I might
mm,
go to a gym class, or I might go swimming with my husband, or something,
yeah,
because I'll enjoy doing that and it achieves the
yes,
same aim, but it's not punishing myself or putting myself into a box that
mm,
just doesn't work for me. If I make space to figure out what works for me, I'll probably get a lot fitter.
yes, yeah, exactly, yeah, because I think that when you start, I think that when we're doing things that are a reaction, so for example, just going to the gym because everybody else is going to the gym, maybe your friend has invited you, you really don't like it, but you're going to go anyway. That's not you. That's kind of made that decision ultimately, and those things actually drain our energy on a nervous system level. But when you do things that are meaningful to you, like even though it's kind of costing you energy in the moment, in the long term, you sort of get a propeller effect where you sort of start to become more regulated, and we kind of enter the fabled flow state of, you
Mhm.
know, things where we're sort of comfortable enough and we're aligned enough, but we're also challenged just the right amount, that everything just kind of resonates together. And,
Yeah.
it's not often that I experience that, but when I do, you feel infinitely capable. You just, all of a sudden you're like, yeah, I could do anything. Um, and that's the
Yeah.
that's the intentional life, I think.
And kind of being, as you were saying about being open to things that are around you, and they may not be sort of standing there feeling really open and a massive opportunity drops in your lap, but it's more around, oh, I have headspace, I have space in my life, so maybe I'll go to that meetup. Maybe I'll, I don't know,
Mm,
read that book and it gives me a
yeah,
spark of conversation one day, or oh, this is really interesting, this new field. Maybe I'll learn something about it. There's many ways to
Yeah,
be open, right? It's not all about
for sure.
just the job opportunity.
Yeah, I like the thought experiment of I had this written on a post-it note on my desk for a while. I think it's gone, but it was if you just deleted everything out of your calendar, like everything, literally everything, how would you start building that back? What would be the first things that you would put in? What are the
Mm,
new things that you would put in? And really importantly, what are the things you would leave out? If all of a sudden, like a commitment that you sort of have every week, maybe it's like seeing maybe it's seeing a friend that you used to really connect with, and now you're just doing it because you're going through the motions, but you've sort of drifted apart. Like, yes, that's kind of sad, but also, it's not in anyone's interests, you or your friends, to
yeah,
to sort of continue doing that thing if it's not really what it used to be. And actually, maybe a bit of time apart might be just what the relationship needs, and to allow it the space to kind of turn into something else, and then being able to use that time, as you say, to go to a meetup or to explore something which has just been kind of quietly announcing itself to you for a little while, and you just thought,
mm,
yeah, like, I'd love to do that. You keep thinking it, but you never have the room to do it. So yeah, I love deleting things from my calendar, actually, and yeah,
that sounds like a top tip. So by creating, so you can see it as well, right? If you
mm,
look at your calendar, even if you did the thought experiment of you don't actually go and hit the delete button, but if you just draw out your week
yeah,
or something and it's
yeah,
empty, of just thinking, oh, what would I fill that with in
yes,
an ideal world, and kind of taking
right,
that embarrassingly small step towards
yeah, we can be
creating a tiny bit
imaginative.
of that ideal.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I think a really important mindset shift as well is if you delete something, it doesn't have to be forever. If you delete going to your yoga class, and then a few weeks later you just desperately want to go back, you can go back. There's no, you're not
I think
committing
I need
to,
to add that back to my calendar.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
so stiff sitting at a computer all day. Oh, I'm
yeah,
inspired now. Yeah,
yeah. But it's this kind of, I think we just sort of feel like, oh, if we try something, we're going to be committed forever.
it's true. Yeah. I mean, I've been to some meetups which were very nice, but I probably won't go back. But I'm still glad I went because
Yeah, yeah, because now you know.
the people have been nice, and it was interesting, and it was an experiment. Maybe it wasn't for me. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the situation necessarily. Sometimes there is, but most of the time it's just it wasn't quite what I was looking for. But that's also okay. Doesn't make me uncommitted to doing that thing. It just means that the result of the experiment was "Hmm, not this thing."
Yeah, yeah, and it's, of course, you're never gonna find exactly what you're looking for in the first place that you look. That's
Mm,
kind of, that's like the definition of exploring. You're kind of poking around the
mm,
edges. What's in the shadows over here? What's in this place I've never been to
yeah,
before? And 9 times out of 10, yeah, it'll just be like, oh, that was nice, but it didn't really resonate with something deeper.
yeah,
But to do that exploration, yeah, you need the space to be able to do it. Like physically, like if your evenings are and your days are all jam packed, then you can't do it. But also, if you're feeling overwhelmed,
yeah,
the idea of going to a meetup, and I've certainly been in that place in my life where just the thought of going to a room full of people that I don't know, and they're probably all really great friends, and none of them are going to talk to me, and like I can talk myself out of that like in an instant.
yeah,
Um, but when you're feeling a bit more capable, when you're feeling less overwhelmed, that can be enough, I think, to just tip the scales in favor of being adventurous, taking a risk. Um,
yeah. And I suppose that one of the things that I'm really hearing there is around, we do get overwhelmed. We kind of have to take care of that overwhelm. Then when we are really, really full, then thing is not to necessarily push through it. The thing is around reconnecting with yourself and making space
yeah,
so that on the other side, once you've kind of backed away, your nervous system has calmed a bit, brought you back into a regulated state, then you can go and explore the world again. It's not always just about push, push, push through the
Yeah.
thing. This is not that's not really making space. I think that's what I'm
Well, I think we're
gathering.
we're cyclical beings, humans. Like everything is kind of seasonal, and you don't just breathe in. You have to breathe in and breathe out.
Mm.
You can't just go to the gym forever. You have to have a rest day, or you have to sleep. There has to be this period of exploration and then kind of integration of what you've learned, what you've
Yeah.
done. Um, so at the I was at the Sanger postdoc retreat last week, and Matt Howells, the institute director, was talking before I was on, and it was a really interesting interview. And he was talking about how important his 5 hours of gardening is every week, and it was great because he kept saying the phrase "making space." So I was thinking, you're really selling my talk for me. Thank you.
Yeah.
Um, he was very clear that actually his productivity and his kind of effectiveness as an institute director of one of the most well-known science institutes on earth must be a very demanding job, but his 5 hours of gardening made him better at his job.
Yeah.
It wasn't like it wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna make room for this because I want to achieve some kind of arbitrary work life balance where I must have this amount of time. It was like, no, to flourish as a human, to be well regulated, to bring my best self into my board meetings, I need to have this space in my life.
I think that really speaks to a lot of the kind of push for productivity culture that
Mm.
that we have at the moment. And we do want to be productive, but what does that mean? It's
Yes.
just being
Yeah.
busy a lot of the time, or being tied to our desk because we want to appear that, we're doing good work. When actually some of this sort of making space can bring better work out of us. But also, I like your point that that's not the point. The point is that it makes your life better.
Yeah. Which
And
which
as a
is
consequence, you
mm,
get potentially better work, but that's not the point.
yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's that's a really kind of key element of the whole making space thing is not allowing the means to become the end, and the end is this kind of transcendent concept of the best version of you. What does
Yeah.
it mean for Chris or for Farah to flourish as a human, and there'll be very different things, no doubt.
Yeah.
um, but the paths to getting there are useful. But when we kind of start to obsess with them, that this is where workaholism comes from, and we become fixated on the outcome of the thing rather than putting it in context. And I like to give the example of my auntie who she has the cleanest house you've ever seen because she's obsessed with cleaning her house. But to the point where she gets really angry, if you make a mess, and so I learned the hard way to take my shoes off at the door and
Mm,
not
yes.
leave any crumbs on the table. But when you zoom out of that picture, the reason for wanting a clean house, it's perfectly reasonable and actually great to have a clean house, but that is in service of your higher self. That's in service of your, the flourishing version of you. And when we become obsessed with the means, it can often be at the expense of the flourishing you. And so just, but it's not without making space that you can sort of, this is why I love the concept of retreats, right? Because you sort of leave your space, your normal day to day, to go to another geographical place, away from your
Mm,
to do list, away from your life, and look back on it from like a, almost like a bird's eye view, like, oh, what is going on in my life? Like, are those things that were serving me once still serving me now? And this isn't a case of
Mm.
getting really angry with those things and being frustrated because they have served us, but maybe they're just not in our interest anymore as we progress on our journey, and being able to let those things go and embrace a new version of ourselves can be scary. It can
Yeah,
be.
and I think that that is one of the key things that I think comes up and up again when we talk about the shape of this career clinic, because we've been in this kind of mode of creating so what we all feel. That's you, Chris, myself, Berenice, Gerher, Jan, all our five lovely crew, of what does it mean to have this journey that we're creating, and what is it that we want to bring to people as a different way of looking at a career rather than
Mm,
a ladder or something desperate that you have to kind
mm,
of fix. That this is really around finding your journey and your path, and that it won't be straight and it won't be
mm.
flat and easy. Or if it is flat, then probably you'll get a crosswind or something. Thinking of cycling around Cambridge all the time. Oh, look, it's flat. No, but
Yes.
have you cycled westwards on a windy day? Um, that you never quite have the journey maybe that you thought. But if you're finding your way as you're going, and if you have techniques to help you find your way, you have
Yeah.
ways to create space, learning ways to reconnect with your values, learning about how, when you have those values, you can express those so that other people can see them
Mm,
and experience them.
yeah.
And then how do you experiment and then figure out what is
Yeah.
working and what isn't, and then let's try it out. And we'll be doing some exercises in this as a session as well, which are kind of activation of all of these elements, but hopefully in a really nurturing, friendly environment. That's what we're hoping to create, is exactly the kind of space so that you can explore
Yeah.
how you might want to approach your career with space, with value, with intent, with meaning, I suppose. I've
Mm.
said a lot of words. I feel like we needed like a really crisp tagline is your career, your way. That, but I've said a lot more words.
Yeah, it's kind of a very simple concept in a way, but then when you start to dig into it, there's a lot under the bonnet, I think, isn't there? And I will just add that I think it's hugely valuable to go on this journey with other people as well. Like,
Yeah,
not only with other people to learn from, ideas and concepts and ways of structuring things, but also other people who are walking that path with you, so
mm,
you can see around you that actually, oh, okay, the insecurity that I was feeling, the hesitation, um, the feeling of needing some guidance, lots of other people are experiencing that too, and
yeah,
and actually things that other people are going through, you may have gone through something similar, and you can share that, and that's kind of going back again to creating this kind of almost tribal feeling of safety. You're accepted in this group, you're a part of it. You're able to share your vulnerabilities, you're able to support people, and that ultimately can only benefit your ability to tap into what's inside you, with intention rather than reaction. It's just that shift from, are your defenses up, is your radar on because you don't know any of these people, to, okay, I've shared some stuff, and
yeah,
I feel welcome and accepted, and all of a sudden, your nervous system, um, guard comes down, the radar turns
yeah,
off, and all of a sudden, you start to be able to tap into that gut feeling, the intuition, the, yeah, what matters to me here, which I just think is going to be great, and I'm very excited for the day. I can't wait.
yeah. I hope that, if there are folks out there they're watching, oh, you can get £10 off with the code live, capital letters LIVE, and we'll give you £10 off the fee for the day. We'll say it is the whole day. There are 5 of us on the crew. But I think even those of us on the crew, I mean, certainly I'm intending to sit there with my notebook in the sessions that all you others are doing as well, because I think we all need this, right? We might be standing
Absolutely.
at the front as a guide, but at the
Yeah,
same time, we're all progressing, we're all moving, and we're all finding our paths.
exactly. Yeah, it's cliche, but it's not the destination, it's the journey, and we're not talking from the position of having completed it. We're still taking it step by step,
Yeah.
and failing and trying again, and really that space is just it's all about that. It's all about just being in it together, and being able to bring your full self into that space, and really just craft a path for you that's going to be meaningful, and that you can commit to, and that you can be supported on.
Oh, brilliant. Well, on that note, please do follow us at Career Clinic. We are Career Clinic Cambridge right here on LinkedIn. You can find us on Eventbrite as well, Career Clinic, or you can contact me or Chris. You'll find our details on this live, and we'll tell you all about it, connect you to the right links, introduce you to some great people as well. Brilliant. I think that is the end of our live stream today. Thank you very much for joining, and thanks, Chris.
Yeah,
Been
thank you,
a
everyone.
marvelous guest. Cheers.
Yeah, I've loved it. Thank you.